Hey everyone, this is Frank Klesitz. Welcome to another episode of Keeping It Real. I appreciate you. I'm glad to have you here. Today you're going to learn how to build some passive income and wealth building in real estate. Hopefully the title of this episode kind of stood out to you. I'm sick of selling houses, which is perfectly fine. There's many people that are kind of tired of, especially now in this market, it'd be quite a grind to actually get an offer accepted, not showing up in all cash and over asking price, right? So we brought a special guest on to Linda here today, who I would introduce here in a second. But before that, I just want to let you know, we've been doing these shows, I believe, since about 2013 or 14. You can go to keepingitreal.com and you can watch all the previous episodes. We found the most successful and forward-thinking and innovative realtors around the country and just basically interrogated them, depose, interview, whatever you want to call it, to get the most information as your advocate out to learn how to sell real estate and make money. All right. And you can go back and watch all these shows. They're all there. They're up on keepingitreal.com. You can also go to iTunes where you can download the show. Also on the Real Geeks Facebook page, you can watch the show as well. Of course, obviously here on the YouTube channel, hopefully over here in the algorithm on YouTube pops up a whole bunch of the more popular shows that you can go back and watch. So I'm Frank Klesitz. I'm your co-host with Greg Harrelson here. My firm is Viral Marketing. And Greg sells thousands of houses with Century 21 out of Myrtle Beach. Say hi, Greg.
Hi, Greg. Hi, everybody.
So our job is to ask the questions that you want to know the answers to. So today's topic is I'm sick of selling houses. What's next? How could I use all that skill that you've built in direct sales as a real estate professional in real estate? How do you make that shift now to building wealth? And the perfect person, I couldn't think of anyone better to interview, is Linda McKissack, because we'll get to her in a second. But I just want to tell you, before all this team building stuff came around in the 2000s, and before the online lead generation, and I don't even know when Real Geeks was founded, but probably well before then, there was just a very small number of real estate professionals in the country that were like, maybe I should start hiring staff or building a team, which was a very novel, very new concept. I mean, wasn't taught. It was just frowned upon and looked at like it was a joke. And Linda said, no, this is the future. And she decided to go all in on building a real estate team where teams weren't even the thing. And she's learned a lot along the way. So I'm happy to introduce her. Linda, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be
correct? Am I correct in what I said there? That you started a real estate team when they didn't exist? Is that right?
Absolutely. Actually, I always like to say we were at level 5 before we even knew there was such a thing as level 5. Gary had not written the red book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, to start to identify the different levels in real estate. And honestly, I realized I'm a freedom seeker. I have been all my life. And so all I kept doing is giving away jobs that would restrict my time and I didn't enjoy, until all of a sudden I got to a place where the only job left to give up was taking a couple hundred listings a year that I did. And it was all after seeking freedom of my time. And to be honest with you, it was not done. When I had hired my first assistant, most agents in my community wouldn't talk to them because they said,
it was frowned upon. It was like, this isn't going to work.
This is never going to work. But the reality is it did work, right? Now look what's out there. And I think people are getting even smarter and smarter about how to do it. And to be honest with you, just turning over all the jobs wasn't even enough for me. 12 years into the business, 200 transactions a year. I even looked up and said, I don't even want to do this part anymore. I don't feel challenged. I don't love it. And I think every realtor, if they haven't already, will hit a ceiling. And a lot of times it's based on your behavior, how much you're modifying who you are every day to do this job. And then sometimes it's just, you want to decide where you want to be when you want to be there. And so for me, first thing I did was turn my team over to my brother-in-law and let him run it for the next 20 years. And we went out and bought houses and just worked on activities that was going to create more passive income, which was going to lead to more freedom.
Yeah. I mean, there's such an incredible story here. I want to step back and go back to the very beginning, because I think what's the key thing I think any viewer can watch through this is you've had a shift in mindset of not thinking about the income statement or the profit and loss. And somehow your entire worldview of business began thinking about the balance sheet. And most people, if you say what an income statement or balance sheet is, you don't know, right? Just starting there. But you made this mental shift, and hopefully through the interview today, I could start kind of pulling out some keys for the audience of how that shift was made. But let's go back a little bit, because you told me a pretty incredible story. Your husband, you and Jim, back, I believe in the 80s, were $600,000 in debt after a failed nightclub.
Yeah.
Did I read that right?
Well, what it was is the economy crashed in Texas in the late 80s. Jimmy had just gone to Dallas to try to make it big with a kind of mini Dave and Buster's, if you will. It had alcohol, but it also had food. And when the crash happened, we had to sell the business for $600,000 less owed against it. Right. So I like to say the word gradually and then suddenly can happen to any of us, obviously. And that's the day it happened to us. And you always say the worst thing that happens to you typically is the best thing that happens to you. But I like you, Frank, I don't want people to wait till that gradually and suddenly happens in their life. I'd rather them wake up sooner.
Well, you probably have kind of buried the emotion of that after so many years ago, 30 some years ago. But the fact that you're looking at $600,000 in debt and you didn't even know about real estate at that time. Is that right?
Yeah, I like to say I was 23 years old. I didn't even barely know what the word economy meant, much less is it a good one.
600 grand, starting your 20s with 600 grand in debt.
That's a lot of money. But the truth is, it was a great wake up call because I was so in over my head with those kind of numbers that I was forced to ask Jimmy what I say. I've been married 39 years. I don't wake up every day and hey, what do you think I should do today? But I was so overwhelmed with what he was telling me that I didn't have any choice but to say, what do you think I should do? I've never made more than minimum wage other than bartending or waitressing. How am I going to help you get out of this with those kind of skills? And it was his genius from a mentor when he was in Pee Wee football that had told him years and years ago, if you want to make a lot of money, real estate. Now we laugh today because I've since learned that man was a huge developer and builder out of Dallas. I don't think he meant, get a wife, get her to sell houses. You guys will be rich forever. I think Jimmy misunderstood the message. He said, buy some real estate, develop some real estate, build some real estate. But I'm thankful because, to be honest with you, I love the industry of selling real estate. I think it's a phenomenal career for people to go from wherever they are to wherever they want to be. And so I'm very passionate about this industry. And I'm just thankful that he got the message wrong because sales was a great fit for me to start making cash flow. But when you have that kind of pain around money, you realize cash flow is not going to keep you out of that mess. You've got to create some kind of passive streams that are there no matter what happens in the economy or what happens in the world.
Linda, that is incredibly insightful. I mean, right there, these little nuggets I want to pull out and I want to reiterate on this. If you wouldn't have started your early 20s with 600 grand in debt, you wouldn't be where you're at because the pain wasn't so far to think big enough to get out.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Because you weren't thinking 1 or 2 deals here a month just to make a living was where I needed to be as a real estate agent.
I was at a place where I thought, well, if I could just sell 50 houses or 100 houses, all my problems are going to go away. And then as I begin to sell 50 houses, then 100 houses, then 200 houses, I'm like, well, no, that didn't solve the real issue. The real issue is how do I get true wealth, which is money coming in so I can be where I want to be when I want to be there.
When did you realize that? How old were you?
I think we started reading books from the pain of being in that way. So I would say probably in late 20s, early 30s, we started reading books on who are the people this doesn't happen to?
But you were selling 50, 100, 150 homes a year in your late 20s. That's a lot of money, Linda.
No. Actually, by the time I started selling in 86, by 92, I was selling 100. So by 98, I was selling 200. So all through that progression. But yeah. Yeah. So about 32 years old is when I was really in the massive years of me selling real estate. And by the time I was in 12 years, I started to look up. I'd built a team already. All I did was take listings. I had buyer agents. I had closing coordinators. I had listing specialists. The only thing I did was took a couple hundred listings a year. Because back then, the number of listings you took would be about the number of deals you'd do. It was more of a buyer's market or a more even market. But I still wasn't happy with my freedom. I'd go check my voicemail on Saturday when I'm in the pool with the kids, and I might get half a day off on Sunday. And that was still the most freedom I was getting. And I didn't like that because I still felt kind of restrained. And I also felt like, what else can I do? Where's the new? I'm a pioneer. I like it when it's new and hard. I don't love it when it's time to maintain. And probably people listening may be at that same place.
Linda, how long did it take you to pay off 600 grand?
Probably 5-6 years. Back then, you got really lucky in the fact that most of the savings and loans were what was going under, and the banks would come to you and say, we'll take 40 cents on a dollar. And if you can scrape up the cash. So Jimmy still had one of his nightclubs going, although the economy was down, they weren't killing it. We could create, and between what I was selling and him eventually joining me in the businesses, we were able to scrape up that money. We had a beat up car. We lived way below our means, and every bit of extra cash we had went to paying off that 600,000. About a 5 or 6 year period.
Here's the second aha I'm having through this. So starting your early 20s with 600 grand in debt, you had to immediately have a big vision to get out, to even think that you could. Yeah, I think is a huge shift for most people. That might be a give up.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a big vision. It was a have to. And
I have to.
We have a have to. I always say it was never marriage enriching conversations. We didn't come home and say, hi, dear, how was your day? We came home and said, where the hell are we going to get some money? We got to get some money.
Yeah. And the second thing is you worked your tail off in your 20s as you're kind of formulating how the world works, at least in business. And you would go out and work your butt off to earn a commission check, and then you'd never see it. You just paid down debt.
Pretty much.
Right?
Well,
yeah.
pretty much.
So you never got the reward of the money to go spend it. You were just paying down the debt service.
Yeah, until we got out of it. And I always tell people we still bought 3 houses while we were climbing out of the $600,000 in debt by finding a partner who had the money and the ability to go borrow.
Linda, that's what's so hard for most people. And I want to maybe, Greg, any commentary you have on this, but you started off in your 20s with a big vision of a lot of pain of having to overcome, and you got very comfortable with earning money, not spending it, a significant sum, to quote unquote invest it. The way you invested was paying down the debts, and that was how you started, right? But you got very comfortable setting money aside and not like spending it in consumption at a very young age, where that's the opposite for most people. And that immediately kind of set the emotional, foundation to continue to invest and make it easy for you emotionally, financially to do it?
Well, I think because I'd never had a lot of money, it was still a lot of money to me. I still wasn't I wasn't depriving of, we still had a house that was owner financed. We had beat up cars, but we had cars, right? So it's not like, I don't think that actually, we still had to, when we started buying the investment properties, make an automatic system to take the money away from ourselves. Jimmy likes to say we had the DMD disease, disappearing money disease. If it went in our hand, it went poof. So we had an automatic system where the title company would take 15% of every commission off the top and put it in an A.G. Edwards account. And when that money got big enough, we'd go buy another investment property. But the first 3 we bought with a partner because we had no money except our commission to throw in. And couldn't go back because of credit, because you can't owe people $600,000 and then go get a new loan. They're not going to do that.
What opened your mind to saying, instead of selling real estate, I really need to have a plan here to buy it, even when you didn't have any money? How did you make that shift?
I think I'm just one of those people. I'm an opportunity seeker. I think, everybody has unique abilities. I think for me, once we made a goal, we said, okay, let's make $250,000 coming in passively. Man, we'll be fine if that happens, no matter what other bumps we hit in the road. So we worked our formula backwards. And then when my brain goes to work like that, I think everybody's brain is like this. Once you make a decision, opportunities that were there yesterday that you couldn't see, you'll see today. But until you make a decision, until we made the decision that we were going to buy 20 rental properties, have them free and clear by the time Jimmy was 60, we couldn't see deals that were there 2 days before because we weren't looking for those kind of deals.
And you were about 32 when you started shifting this way, and Jimmy was 40. Is that about right?
Let's see. Yep. He's 9 years. That's about right. Yep. He's 9 years older than me. Yep. So, I think I don't think it was a big vision, because I don't want people to think, oh, well, I don't have that big vision. I don't think it was that. Honestly, I think it was one foot in front of the other. This is the plan. And this is where I think people mess up. You know, what's your freedom number? What's a number that if you had that money coming in, you would work because you wanted to, not because you had to? Start with that, and then add in a few life's unexpecteds, like my parents may be getting older and they may need help with me financially. What charities do I want to be able to fund or give to? You know, I think we don't start with a plan. I think once you make the commitment and you have a plan, I think we started to see opportunities that were there, but we weren't the ones to see them. You know, I immediately went out and found a house, and I came home and said, Jimmy, I'm so excited. This seller will sell. We can make $15,000. We just got to do quite a few repairs on it. And I think we'll net $15,000 on it. He said, that's great, Linda. Where are we going to get the money? And so that night when I went to sleep, I woke up the next morning and Lou Kraft, the name came to me. I said, I'm going to go ask Lou. Lou loves me. I love him. We trust each other. We want each other to do well. He was a builder I worked with. I went and presented it to him and he said, yes. What do you want me to do? I'll do it. I said, well, all I got is my commission. That's all I can throw in. He said, that's fine.
Linda, did you ever, this is so many questions I have, because just the way you think is incredible. When that was your first time raising money, am I correct? That was your first time you decided to raise
asked
money.
Anybody for a nickel. No.
So you just went to bed one night, not saying I can't afford it. You went to bed asking, how can I afford it? And the very next day you call up a friend and you just ask them for money.
Yep. I asked him to partner with me.
Yeah. Well, for partnership and equity position.
And he was going to win out of it too. And, you know, we're the kind of people that if we have your money, Frank, we're going to be more laying awake at night worrying more about your money than we are our own. Yeah. So I was not going to let him lose on this deal. If I'd had to give him every penny that I made because we lost somehow on it, I would have done that. I always have a backup plan to my plan. Right. But I think you got to set the wheels in motion. You got to decide, what's my freedom number? At what point will I be doing this business because I want to, not because I have to? And then we read Kiyosaki's books, and there's only 3 ways to do it: businesses, real estate, or stocks. And we stink at stocks and not interested in learning about them. But by the way, we could learn about businesses and we could learn about real estate. So we picked real estate first because we'd been burnt by his business. And we're like, well, I don't want to do that right now.
Yeah, you kind of left real estate at that point.
Yeah. And so that left real estate. Well, here you go. Here's our choice, right? If I had a million choices, you probably wouldn't act on any. But everybody has 3. I love when complicated things get simple because we're real simple.
Which are stocks, real estate, and owning a business. Yeah.
Right. So we started with real estate and then eventually would turn our real estate practice into the first business that we would attempt after all of this debacle. And then let that money come in passively to us while our brother-in-law ran the business, and we got to go out and own other franchises, own a region, build our profit share, buy more houses, do vacation rentals, whatever you get to do with that freed up time.
Linda, everyone, by the way, was one of the very first proteges, I would say, of Gary Keller at Keller Williams. He personally worked with you in your late 20s, kind of making the shift?
Probably early 30s. And
early 30s.
My business was pretty far along. And I just said to him one day, I can't say this to a lot of people, Gary, but I don't feel challenged. I feel like the only thing changing in my life is the color of carpet. And I didn't know this about myself at the time. I think so much of our journey is us figuring out what's important. You know, your soul kind of knocks on your door and says, I had one job after 18 that was go in at 8 and get off at 5. I was so miserable. So I always laugh and say, so I quit that darn job and got into real estate where you go in way before 8 and you get off way after 5.
Yeah.
But my soul, was free, you know? So I learned, okay, freedom is important to me. So every time I would begin to feel constrained or restricted, I'd start trying to look for an answer to get out of it. But by this time, I'm making $800,000 a year. Our family's living off of our realtors go by gross, right? We were probably only netting 350, but we were grossing 800,000. And I'm like, I can't walk away from the money, Gary, but I just don't get excited about doing this like I used to. I like to go try to build things. So that was when he said, well, let me coach you on a concept that I'm working on where I think we can find a person that would be a perfect fit to come into your business take it to the next level and free you up to go do some other things.
And this was the seed of the Keller Williams model at this time.
Well, this was the seed because he had not even written the red book yet.
No.
But in our masterminds and stuff, he was formulating what were all of us doing correctly? What were our gaps? What did we need help with? You know, what were we, you know, challenged by? What did we want, you know, to try to achieve? And so I was scared to death because, you know,
let me ask you, was that the time when you said, I'm really sick of selling houses? Like, this is not going to get me to where I need to go.
Yeah.
This is where the audience is.
Yeah.
Someone's here because they're sick of selling houses. I want to get really specific. If you could go back to that place of you're saying, I have to make a shift, but I have to have the income of selling houses here to support what I have, which is probably taking it to the edge of emotion and time.
Yeah.
But I want to start investing in real estate. I want to start building businesses. And it sounds like you found like the greatest mentor ever right at that time of Gary.
Yeah. Yeah, because no one had done this in the country. I did not know a single person who had ever turned
without any track record. There was no blueprint. Nothing existed.
No. And I'm a blueprint follower. I'll copy all kinds of ideas, but I'm not usually the one that comes up with it, right? But I think, you know, I always say when the pain of staying where you are is great enough, you'll let go to go somewhere else. Or until you have a bigger, brighter future of where you can go to, you won't let go. And I see a lot of top agents do this. They won't let go. They won't take a step back in their business to try to go build something bigger and a bigger life because they don't know what they're going to next. They don't know what it looks like.
Frank, let me interject something here too. You know, I think we need to distinguish the difference in between being sick of selling homes and selling homes no longer challenges me. Okay, because there, you know, we said you know, if we think about our audience right now, there's people that are sick of selling homes because they've really never mastered the process of selling homes. They're running around like, you know, chickens with their heads cut off. The business is controlling them. I don't hear that that's where Linda was. I hear Linda was, I've actually reached a mastery level. I'm saying she reached a mastery level. She didn't say that about herself, but I will definitely say that she reached a mastery level and then she became less challenged. And she said something here. She's like, I'm a freedom seeker. I'm an opportunity seeker. See, that's different than I'm sick of something. That is, I see more and I want to get more. And I think that that's a distinction that we have to make, because if somebody's listening to us and they're sick of selling homes, that does not mean you actually try to work yourself out of selling homes, because you may not have even mastered the process yet to be able to mentor or lead anyone else. That's a little different than what I hear Linda was.
Well, or you could, because here's the thing. I had a really bad transaction around the same time. I mean, it was so bad that I went and got my resume out, and I remembered, oh hell, this resume gets me about minimum wage. I remember why this resume is in a drawer and I sell real estate. But it triggered something to me that said, I'm going to now, any opportunity I get to build passive income, I'm going to double down on that. So I think you can have both going on at the same time, because I think when you're not willing to master something, you're going to be more frustrated. And that's okay. You know what? Be truthful with yourself. If you're not willing to master that, you better master something else, right? But don't give up the 10,000 hours that you already have in an industry. Just use that as your jumping off point into whatever's next. You know, we have a little guy that has been my son's friend since he was 3 years old. And he got a degree in real estate. He's been around our family forever. It's truly the rich dad, poor dad story. He got into real estate. He didn't love selling real estate. He's kind of a little lazy, and it works out in his favor. He said, I don't love selling houses, but I love how you guys have bought investment properties. And he also loves the recruiting piece, which I do also to build passive income. So he just mastered those two. He doesn't go try to sell a bunch of houses because he knew he didn't love it enough to master it. And so I think Greg, can maybe have both of them going on in your life. But I think the more you're not willing to master something, the more you're going to hit a ceiling. And see, I hit a ceiling because expansion wasn't a possibility back then. If expansion had been a possibility and I had seen another goal to go after, I might have went after that. So, there's two kind of entrepreneurs in the world. There's the kind that makes more money than they ever thought they were going to make. They maybe even make more money than their parents ever made. And they go, dang, wow, made more than I ever thought. I'm done. And they start looking for greener pastures in community services or just coasting or whatever. And then there's this entrepreneur that's wired in such a way that says, wow, I accomplished that. I wonder, now that can become my floor. I wonder what else I can do. And you got to know yourself well enough to know who you are. But I think every realtor out there better assume that at some point you're going to hit some kind of ceiling. And now it's harder to build a plan and go do something because your past due date is probably, wearing on you a lot more.
That's great.
Linda, how did you make that transition from I'm selling real estate to I'm now going to buy real estate? I'm going to go down a path of investing in market centers or brokerages. I'm going to take up opportunities to buy a region with Keller Williams and all the different ownership interests that you have. There was that shift that sounds like it was made right around that time of meeting Gary. Could you tell us how that shift was made, of how you made that transition, out of being in the business maybe, or out of selling real estate and starting to now, instead of working for money, having more money work for you?
Yeah. Well, I think anytime you make a shift like that, those commitments are so big. And by the way, this is how anybody's life gets really big. If you think about your life, Frank, and Greg, I'm sure if you think about your life, you could go back in your life and you could find a point where you made a commitment that scared the crap out of you, right? It took so much courage. And the reason it takes courage is because you have no flipping clue how you're going to pull off that commitment. But because you're committed to making the commitment, you go get the credentials as fast as possible. And then you get to go to this beautiful place called confidence. And what you have to be careful of is another C called complacency. Because if you get in complacency, you're not out there looking for those scary commitments. So I want everybody to understand, I was scared to death. I thought, gosh, if this thing doesn't work out, I'm going to ruin my income. I'm going to ruin a family relationship because he happened to be a family member. There was a lot of bad things that could have happened with this. But I look back now and I realize that we have to make commitments that scare us, and we need to do it on a regular basis, because that's the only way your life is going to get big. And we're all learning, I think COVID taught us two things. One, you've got to work actively on being as healthy as you possibly can. And you better work on being wealthy as you possibly can, because you don't know what life's going to hand us. Realtors dodged a dodgeball. I mean, we dodged a ball with COVID. We got really blessed.
Yeah.
But there's Federal Reserve something around the corner that we might be the right target for. And so if you don't have those plans in place, you're in a terrible place and your family's in a terrible place. So I think I have a girl that's going to come on one of my podcasts soon, and she's not even she just barely got her real estate license. But what she said to me on a call the other day was, she said, I was in the healthcare industry, and Linda, I saw how bad it is if people don't prepare for the future. And so I said, you know what? I want you to come on and talk to our audience and tell, what are some of the terrible things you saw that people don't want to think 20 years out so they couldn't avoid, like elderly parents that can't afford certain good health care, and the kids don't have enough money to pitch in and help them have a good quality of life. And so those kind of things, I think, help motivate me a little bit. I never want to be dependent on someone else. I always want to have a backup plan. And so I think that mind shift helped a little bit, but I don't think you're going to wake up one day and have all the credentials and the courage to do it. So don't be looking for that. Get ready to wet your pants a little, because you're going to be scared when you buy your first house, and you're going to be scared when you turn your business over to someone else. You're going to be scared when you take these kind of steps. But I also began to understand that if I wanted freedom, I was going to have to figure out a way to stop trading my time for money. And by the way, real estate is just a time for money if you don't set it up correctly.
But you started that very young, because if I catch your story right, you were building a team right away.
Yeah. Well, only because I saw other people doing it. I mean, it's so funny because there was nothing in my local area. No offices had training. I mean, you were literally on your own. I made $3,000 my first year. That was gross. Jimmy said, this is super gross. I owe 600 and you're making 3 and I'm spending 15 for you to make 3. This math is not good. Girl. So, but I didn't have any help. And so all of a sudden someone paid for me to go to Mike Ferry out in the desert. And that changed everything for me. I'm like, well, I just got to do what these people are doing. Tony DeCello, Greg, you and I know Tony, he was on the stage and he made magically that year, 600,000. Jimmy and I groped him and tackled him in the back of the room and took him to dinner and rollerbladed with him and sucked the life out of him till he told us how to go make $600,000 in your real estate business. Yeah. But, I think, you have to be committed to whatever this is you're doing, and then go find the resources to help you figure out the credentials. Because don't wait till you have the credentials. You're never going to do it. Go at 60% or 70 or 80% max. Just go.
Can you tell us, because one of my first big deal that I ever did, which was a 50-unit apartment building, when I was way too young to be doing a 50-deal apartment building, was call Tony DeCello and say, I don't have the money to do this. Yeah. But I will work my tail off to make sure that I pull this off. And that he was actually he was my partner, or I was his partner. My commission was the equity. And then I got some additional equity because of the sweat that I was pouring into this thing. And then that started off a neat little business for us of buying property. But I think it'd be very helpful, because you just alluded to, you did a deal like that early on. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities. I think it was Tony that told me, or somebody taught me this thing in that statement, that is, a good deal never goes unfunded.
That's right. It's not money you need.
A good deal will never go unfunded. So if it's a good deal, you never have to worry about whether or not you have money, because you can find the money. Yeah, that's kind of what I did with Tony years and years and years ago. It sounds like you did a deal like that in the early years for you. And I think that there's a lot of people that miss that good deal never goes unfunded. Can you say how would you suggest someone structure a deal like that if they don't have money but they've got a good opportunity? How can they get their feet wet with something like this?
Great question, Greg.
I have a great formula that I use for everything, whether I'm building a 200 plus transaction business, whether I'm investing in real estate, whether I'm building my profit share or building a region. It's relationship plus my validity plus someone else's value gap over time. So, okay, first of all, I got to have those kind of relationships, right? But before I do that, I got to be valid to that person. Because if you weren't valid to Tony, that would have been a different conversation. And it could have been no, right? Yeah. So what are you doing to create your validity so that when you do have an opportunity, they know you well enough, they believe in you well enough, you created enough beholdenness and reciprocity that it's the automatic answer is yes, right? People miss that part. So if you don't have the money, you got to have something else, right? I didn't have the money, but I had the knowledge, I had the willingness to work, I had the willingness to go find the deal. And I had the high responsibility that I'm going to make sure this thing, if I have to go 24/7 and make sure it doesn't fail, he would have got his money even if I had lost all of mine, not all of mine, but my profit, So I think you have to work on your validity first, because
what was your validity?
You know what? He knew I was a hard worker. I'd been working for him for years. He knew I was honest. He knew I always worked the best to get him the most amount of money. He knew I worked my butt off all the time on his houses. There was trust there. And, never once did I, try to get him to not make as much money. And by the way, he was valid to me because some of my builders I had at the time, they'd look at my, my net and compare it to, his gross. I'm like, my gross and look at his net. I'm like, you can't do that. I still got to pay this person, that person. That he wasn't that person. So I didn't go to Larry, who was my other builder. I didn't go to him and ask him to do it because he didn't have validity with me. But I went to Lou because I knew we could do something together and we would both lay awake at night and worry about each other. And so most people, if you don't have money, if money's your validity, great. Money's your validity. Now, who do you need to go put that money with so that both of you can win? Because, you either have the money or you have the validity. And if you have the validity and the work ethic, money will always show up. That's never the issue, the money. But for me, I think it was my knowledge, my hard work. He knew me well enough to know that, I'm going to bust my tail for him. And, I'd done everything I possibly could to get him to make more money. And so all that stuff had already been set in place. But the language you use, if you go up to someone and say, hey, would you want to invest in this rental property with me? And you can't answer their questions intelligently, you're not going to be very valid. The books you've read, the classes you've gone to, all that adds up to be your validity. I always say my failures, honestly, can become some of your biggest validity if you learn something from it and do something differently with it. I've probably been as valid to so many people over the loss that we had because we didn't get just kicked in the gut and go lay down somewhere. We got kicked in the gut and we got back up, and now we can help other people do the same thing. So you build on your validity, but I don't think a lot of people think about that when they want to go ask somebody to help them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what was the rest of that formula? I've never heard this formula, and I've only got the first two things down, and we're not stopping until I get the whole formula.
Okay. So the capital R is this. Who do you need? Who do you love being a hero to? Who could you help for the next 25 years? Every one of us have an ideal person. I just got off the phone with an attorney that's trying to build a business, and he wanted me to coach him, but I said, I don't coach anybody at realtors, so I can't help you, but I'll give you 30 minutes and tell you what I would do. But the formula is this. Who do I need a relationship with? If I'm in sales, for me, it was always listings. I didn't focus on buyers because I knew if I went and focused on listings, the good buyers would come along, right? So it was real clear. I want to be a hero to listings. I want to be a hero from listings from this price range to this price range, because that's who I enjoyed. I got up every day and time flew by and it was fun. Now, what's my validity to get in relationship with those people? And then what's of value to them, or what's their biggest value gap? And I just start giving and giving and giving and giving. Because my friend Joe Polish says, life gives to the giver and takes from the taker. And I believe that with all my heart. I don't worry about what I'm going to get on any situation. I just try to give. And if I can give, something will always come of it, or maybe it's just goodwill, and that's okay too. So let's say, for example, I'm looking for a real estate deal. Okay. The people that I want to be a hero to are the people that we call them the D's: drugs, death, divorce, or distress. Those are the people that sell in every market. Even right now, Frank, you guys are buying tons of them. Those people are always there. So that's who I want to build a relationship with. Now, how do I become valid to them? Well, I always go for a win-win deal. I'm not trying for them to lose and me to win. And I'll always go in and present to them the opportunity of how I could make them more money than if they sold it to me, right? Now, what's their biggest value gap? Is it time? Because man, they've gotten a divorce and they're ready to just move on to their next life. They don't want any more of this life. So time is what's their value gap. So how can I prove to them I've got cash sitting on the sideline? I'm ready to fix that time problem for them. And then I just do that over time for as long as it takes. And that's how you're going to get the results that you get. If I'm recruiting somebody, it's the same formula. If I'm building my sales business, it's the same formula. If I'm building my investment portfolio, it's the same formula. And sometimes those relationships are mentors. I need a mentor in my life. I need a coach to coach me a little better. So those relationships could also be other big dreamers and thinkers, because I've learned if I can get around other people who dream and think big, I dream bigger and think bigger, and I can help them dream big and think bigger. When you think about freedom, we think about freedom of money and time, but really freedom of relationships has been hugely pay off for all of us. I mean, look at your relationship with Tony and our relationship with Tony. He's our business partner. I mean, the beach house I'm sitting in right now, we're partners in it. Commercial buildings that we have together, we're partners in it. So I think people don't realize when we say relationships, it encompasses everything: your family, your key relationships, who you hang out with, who you learn from. Your time is your most valuable asset. And the one common thing is we all only got 24 of it. So how in the world, Greg, can you go do what you do in 24 and other people can't even figure out how to sell 10 houses in a year in the 24 they have? Those are relationships too. So did you get it, the formula?
I think I did. I only got still relationship and validity.
Yeah. Relationship,
plus validity,
plus their value, what they value right now. Because remember, Zig Ziglar says the way you're going to get what you want in life is help enough other people get what they want.
Yeah.
Most people miss they want, not what I want for them or what I think they should want. How do I get to know them well enough to know what they really want? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now I just do that over time. Whereas investments, that timeline might be, 20 years before I get to pay off because we hold the properties. Whereas my real estate practice, that might be 60 days because I can get a sale. Everything has a time thing on it, and you don't normally get to control that. Somebody else does. So you have to be willing to do enough of it that there's always stuff in your pipeline so that something's always coming out of it.
That's awesome.
I think I actually have something to add to that one too, Linda. Thank you for sharing that. To your question, Greg.
Yeah.
Talk about no validity other than pure relationship. I was 21 years old, and my first 5 rental properties were with my dentist. So I went in to get a dental checkup, and my dentist, who has worked with my whole extended family in Nebraska, where I'm from, was like, "Frank, what are you up to?" I'm like, "Well, I'm in college, and all my friends want 4 bedrooms, and we're willing to pay money for it because it's cheaper per person because you slap them all in the bedrooms. Because $50 or $100 a month is a huge spread for like what your rent's going to be. And there's all these 4 bedrooms vacant. We should buy them and rent them." He's like, "Yeah, I've always wanted them." I'm like, "That's great. Well, I don't have that much money. Maybe I can go in 20% and you pony up the other 80. Thank you. Thank you." And he said yes.
Yeah.
And that's how we bought our first 5, and it appreciated. Then he wanted out because the market in 2000, as the years went on, it was just like, "I want my cash out." They appreciated enough for refinanced. I paid him back, and now I own them 100%.
But I'm going to beg to differ. I'm going to tell you, Frank, you did have validity. Had you been in jail up until that point?
Nope.
There's just validity. Had he watched you grow up with your family, and he saw that you were different than most 21-year-olds, there was your validity.
Yeah.
I'd walk in with my Eagle Scout uniform to get my teeth
there
done.
You go. So see, you were building validity and you didn't even realize it. And your teeth were probably cleaner than most 21-year-olds.
They were clean. They were. Yeah. So it's just like, that's how it started.
Yeah.
And there's just to share with the audience, there's another,
I call it street credibility, I think is what street cred. I look at Linda as like, she's got a lot of street credibility, and is another way of looking at validity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jay Abraham talked, I was fortunate to actually spend a day with Jay Abraham at his house.
Wow.
And it was pretty cool. And in his office got to be a fly on the wall for a day of consulting. And, he was just, "Frank, you should just go out and offer to do everything for minority stake, which banks will say is about 20 or 25%, where you don't have to be on the loans. If you're 25% or higher owner, they want you signing on the debt. But if you're a minority owner, you don't necessarily have to sign on the debt. Just offer to do everything for that stake, and the other partner just puts in all the money in credit." And I remembered that. I approached somebody and said, "Hey, I'd like to do that same deal. We'll take 20%, but no downside risk. You can't dilute. And I'll do all the work. Yep. You put up all the money in credit." And in the past year and a half, about 36 rental properties were purchased that way.
Yeah.
And we walked into 20% equity without any downside risk, money or credit being used. And a lot of that was due to the thinking of, how do you make that switch if I'm sick of selling houses, I don't have much money, or I want to challenge Greg, right? Which is definitely what's coming through here with Linda, without question. Starting to think in terms of learning how capitalism works, of how LLCs are formed and how there's equity stakes and how you raise money. How did you guys learn that? Like, if you don't have a college education in business, or you haven't studied, like, I don't know, just how capital is raised, of debt versus equity financing, you follow me? How did you guys learn how to start doing that? I mean, you did your first deal with Tony. That's probably how you learned that, right, Greg? Oh, I can waive my commission.
I learned a ton.
Equity piece.
Yeah.
Right?
Learned a ton.
Where would someone go to learn how to structure stuff like that as they're trying to exit? They don't have the money and they're trying to exit into ownership. Any thoughts between you two? I don't know.
Well, we read simple books in the beginning. I think you have to understand money first and get excited about money flows to you differently. And there's a difference importance in how it flows to you. If it's a time for money, it can go away. If it's money coming in off your money or something else that's different. But I think we read simple books like Robert Kiyosaki. I mean, we're not complicated people. Your wife, Katie, and I were talking about this is, I don't do cap rate, all that crap. If I got a pencil and a piece of paper, and if that thing makes sense, we're doing it. I'm not doing all that crap, right?
I'm going to send you a CoStar report. You're going to look at that on a multifamily property, and you're just going to have a panic attack.
No, but here's the thing. My philosophy is I call somebody I know. When we bought an apartment building to flip, I just used my network of people. I called Daryl Fiedler, who's done apartments, many apartments in California. I said, Daryl, never done this before. These are the repairs we're thinking about doing. What would you do? He goes, he nixed about half of them. We made a whole lot more money. I like to reach out to people, and I read simple books, Robert Kiyosaki's Millionaire Next Door, The Wealthy Barber, Building Wealth One House at a Time. Any of those kind of simple books is what I like. And then if it's real complicated or it's out of my league, I'm calling somebody. I'm gonna find a friend or someone who knows someone that I could trust that they would share information with me. That's how I would do it. Greg, I don't know what you did. And by the way, a lot of times we just failed our way forward. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. I think about some of our first market centers. We laugh because David Osborne is our partner, and one of them, and he laughed and said, I thought y'all knew what the heck you were doing. And they're like, well, we did it because we thought you knew what you were doing. Neither one of us knew what we were doing, but we're the kind of people that we're going to go figure it out, and we're going to lay awake at night and worry about the other person. And they know that. So that's the things I think you have to look for is sometimes you just got to fail your way forward. You'll figure it out. You don't know the answer first.
One of the things that I've told people lately is, I got my, figuratively, I got my bachelor's degree in real estate by the hard work that I put into real estate, but I got my PhD in real estate from my failures. Yeah, that's where I really, really learned is from all the mistakes that I made. And, for the audience out there, we're not saying, hey, go out there and fail as much as you can. Failure is going to be a part of a process. If you're actually taking action, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
But I love, Linda, what you're saying is you don't always have to be the resource, right? You can be resourceful. So you're going out there and tapping into your resources. A question that I have for you is around leverage. And how people that are wanting to get into passive income in the area of, well, more specifically in the real estate side, what is your opinion on leverage? And your opinion may be different today than it was, in the beginning. But if we could kind of go back to the beginner's mind, and I want to start buying real estate, what is your thoughts on? I don't have any money today, so I'm going to have to raise money from investors. I'm sorry, I don't know. Are you hearing some back feed?
I apologize. I was just sharing a video. Okay. My sound sharing is on, but really quick, everyone, I apologize. Yeah. I asked a question of how would you start learning business finance of raising money with a piece of an LLC, or how do I earn my way into ownership, which requires an understanding of debt versus equity financing of a venture, which is capitalism. And I remember watching a video a long time ago. It went off in my head of this is the best video I've ever watched on how this works. I shared it in the chat for everyone. It's with Bill Ackman, everything you need to know about finance and investing in under an hour. And he talks about how he starts a lemonade stand with nothing and grows it into a multinational empire. And the step-by-step of how he does that, how the money works is incredible. It's something I'll probably give my kids. So I just wanted to share that. So with that, back to you, Greg. Sorry about the leverage interruption because my sound's being
just your thoughts for somebody that's wanting to start investing. I think you can be over leveraged and you can also be under leveraged possibly, right? What are your thoughts around that dialogue?
Well, we wrote a book called Hold, and that book is our journey in buying investment properties. And one of our main criteria is we're never more than 70 to 30 loan to value ratio. Because what happened in the late 80s, we didn't own any real estate when that crash happened. We only had a business that we had to sell for $600,000 less than what we owed. But what we watched around us was everybody that had real estate lost it. They went belly up, and they went belly up because they bought the deal on appreciation. So one of our main philosophies became, it's a good deal when you buy it. It cash flows $150 to $200 a month on a 15-year mortgage. And we're never more than 70 to 30 loan to value ratio. And by the way, we've bought in every market and we've never lost money on a single property. And so I think you have to be careful because this is how people get up. Everybody I've ever talked to, or that we've, brought into our strategy room to try to help them, when they had a sour taste in their mouth about real estate investing, we could always track it back to they were either a speculator, meaning you don't really know what you're doing, you're just trusting someone else, or you're an investor. An investor says it's a good deal when I buy it or I don't buy it. Mm-hmm. People ran to Florida back in 08, 09, buying, stuff that was just appreciating through the roof. Well, that's not really investing, that's speculating. And you might as well, you can do that, but understand you're gambling. What's that money you can just lose? Because that's gambling, right? You're just taking a risk. So I think that's the piece people have to figure out what your temperature is on. Ours has never been, we saw all that devastation. We didn't want to go back there. So we were very cautious. And people have gotten there a lot faster than we're getting. And Frank and Katie are getting there way faster than we are.
We're 80%. We're pushing it.
Yeah.
80% loan to value.
Yeah. You stand on the shoulders of giants, and you just to figure out which way do you have the most comfort level that you could still get there. There's so many ways to get anywhere you want to go. There's not just one way.
So I think that number though is a lot to do with your risk tolerance, right?
Yes.
It's like the individual risk tolerance. But like, no matter what your risk tolerance is, there's still there's when we're talking about, Frank says 80-20, you say 70-30. I'm actually way more conservative. I'm like 60-40. I plan for Armageddon. Yeah. Like, it's gonna, but some people don't plan for Armageddon. They just, they plan for a market correction. Yeah. But I think people need to understand that equity that we make sure that we have there it insulates us from having to make panic decisions when there's market corrections. Yeah. And I think that's very, very important when you're looking at investing. You don't ever want the market correction to force you to make a decision. You may make a decision, but to be forced to make a decision is usually a bad position to be in.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to post a copy in the chat to your book, Linda.
Yeah, that'd be great. I've actually heard about that your book, and I've never read it, but I'm going to commit to reading it.
Well, Frank has a few copies. He might give you one.
Yeah.
He has 200 copies richer, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're looking to invest in real estate, Gary wrote The Millionaire Real Estate Investor.
Good, great book.
I would start there.
Yeah.
But there's lots of directions you can go with investing. You can flip, you can hold, you could do all these other things. Linda's all about holding, buying them right, and then letting the tenant pay off the mortgage over 15, maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
And then when it's all paid off, you can cash flow. Nope, there you go, Greg. Greg has a copy.
It's right there, huh?
And if a person's young enough, they could do 30 years, if you're young enough, and just pay them off early if you so choose, just it depends on your age and what you're trying to accomplish.
I'll tell you, for anyone who's watching this, I think there's a huge opportunity, but the stock market right now is just on a sugar high. I think we can all agree, with all the money floating around. And there's a lot of people that have money. There are, but they just don't really know what to do with it, of where they can put for a good return, because the stocks are easy, but they're so expensive right now, right? And bonds don't pay anything, maybe investing in a business is like way too much. A lot of people are, if you went to them, would be very comfortable with short-term loans, where, hey, look, I just need the money for a couple months to fix up the house, to sell it. Kind of like what Curbio does, I think, for the listings or whatnot, and it's paid at closing. But if you just went to your friends and family and people that saying, hey, if I could bring some money together in some way where we can just buy some of these properties that come across my plate as a real estate professional, and then we can sell them or maybe fix and flip them in some way, whatever. But I think I just want to drive this home for the audience is you realized you needed money, Linda, and the very next day you went out and asked for it. That's crazy for most people. That's so scary to go ask for that. Yeah. And then Greg, it was the same thing for you. How old are you with a 50-unit apartment building? 20 what?
Yeah, it was early 20s.
Early 20s.
It's hilarious. It's like,
and you called somebody up, and it wasn't like, I can't do this. You thought about, how can I do it?
But to Linda's point, I had the relationship.
Yeah, you had the relationship.
So it wasn't like, so right now it seems like crazy that I'd make that ask, but then now that she gives me the formula, I'm like, well, it wasn't really that crazy though, because It was
for most people, it's very scary to go ask somebody for like thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars.
And I agree with you, Frank. Yeah, I agree with you. I just overcame it because now Linda made me aware. It's because the relationship that I had.
But remember, it's those kind of asks and commitments. That's how your life's going to get big. So we're not saying either one of us did it without fear. We both probably were afraid, but we were willing to, we already had no, right? So I think that's where people have to go ahead and just, you already have no, let's see if you can get a yes, right? And then bust your butt to make it a good decision for that other person. But I think you have to make those kind of asks or commitments that make you want to wet your pants a little, or your life's not going to get big. It's just going to stay the way it is.
I want to give the audience two things to think about is learn how you form an LLC, most likely, and how an operating agreement works, which is the contract between the owners. You have to know what that is. These are some more of the tactics of how you move into ownership. These are things that were taught to me, and I had no idea. And then think about whatever the venture is, whatever you're purchasing is, how can you take a minority position, minority stake, somewhere between 0 and probably 25% on the high side. And the reason for that is that's where the banks want you to start signing on stuff and never look at how much money you have if you have more ownership to get things going. And go find somebody that wants something just as bad as you, but doesn't want to do as much time-driven work, but they have the money and the credit. And see if you can structure a deal where you're the manager of the LLC. They're the majority owner. You have a minority stake, and you go out and do it together. That's an option. The other option that a lot of people don't know that exists is calling business brokers or even just other real estate teams and offering to buy their business. And a lot of times it's very little money down, and they might owner finance the money down. And the federal government, just like a mortgage, backs the loan to buy the owner out through the Small Business Administration. And many times you can buy something, and earn your way in that way, and you could borrow the money to do it. But when these things were opened up to me of like how capitalism works, I think that's probably one of the really interesting ways of looking at it. Like, oh yeah, I never thought of it that way because it's not taught in school. It opens up a world of opportunity of how you can get the money. So I thought I would just give you guys some of those tips.
Yeah. It's funny, Greg, thinking about Tony. Tony was the first person we ever heard of that sold his real estate practice. I think he sold it for $500,000. So in the late 90s, when we're replacing ourselves with Brad, really for the first 20 years, he ran the team, and we just gave him an override of what he grew it to, not what we got it to, but what he grew it to. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, we could see that we really weren't going to the next level. And so we really needed to make a decision. What did we want to do? And honestly, it became our least amount of money that we made. And so we decided that we would sell it to him. So we took $600,000 in equity in properties that we had owned together with him. And then I took a note for the rest of it over the next 10 years. So one thing that agents do not think about enough is that if you do your business correctly, it is an asset that you can either turn over to somebody else or you could sell. And that fixes the business piece of all of this, which, by the way, I didn't know that part about the government backing. That's good to know. But those kind of deals, we just got to think bigger. And like you said, Frank, learn how this stuff can be structured, because there's so many opportunities out there where realtors get to the end of their career and they don't want to give it up, but they don't know what else to do with it. You could buy so many businesses right now that way.
I'm putting a book, just something I've read that the audience might find joy in, is called The Golden Handoff.
Yep.
It's about how to kind of do a structured earn out on a referral fee of taking over someone's business.
Yep.
Greg, what other questions do you have for Linda before we let her go? Linda, thank you for sharing all these insights, just kind of opening people's minds of what's next.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
I can't think of another. I had written down about leverage. That was something that I really wanted to discuss. Other than that, I think she's answered quite a bit. There's a lot of discussion you and I are probably going to have after this.
Yeah, we are. Well, let's see if there's any questions. Any questions, everyone, for Linda? I know there's a little bit of a delay, so let's see if we have some Q&A for Linda. Let me go in here. So Linda recommends 15-year loans with 30% down on long-term rentals. Is that right, Linda? Eric asks.
Well, you either have to buy it below value, like there's times where we bought it, you know, less. It depends. If you buy it 10% below value, you got to put 20% down to get that 70-30. So depending on where you get to buy the property, how far under value.
Oh, that's an interesting. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So so that was one question. What was the other question they had?
No, that was just the only question.
Yeah. And the reason we did 15 years is, remember, Jimmy was 40 when we even started. If you're starting earlier, your timelines can be different. If you're starting later, your timeline has to be different. And by the way, we've never touched any of that money, because that money is future money when everything's paid off, which a lot of people, you know, they're doing it because they want the money now. What our philosophy is you're usually in your peak earning years right now. You don't need the cash flow now. You just want it somewhere in the future for freedom options. And so depending on where you are in your life, that's going to decide if you do 15-year, 20-year, or 30-year on your mortgages.
Got it. Well, looks like we don't have any questions. Everyone's just kind of like,
Like drinking from a fire hydrant.
Yeah, it's kind of like rewiring the brain of how you go about that. And I really can't stress enough, my advice to on this is just study the game of capitalism, of how you use debt and equity financing to get the money. Because if you don't know that exists, everything else shuts down because I can't afford it. Or I have to spend, 10 years of labor, for many people, of after-tax W-2 income to save up enough money to do it. Whereas if you understand business borrowing, where you're borrowing money for good reasons because it's debt, it's income producing debt.
Yep.
Or you're structuring a deal where someone gives you the capital in return for a piece of the bottom line, a share of the profits, capitalism, finance. Instead of having to wait 10 years, you can now do it now. I mean, we were just to leave this, we were talking about a business venture and we needed like $1 million to do it. And you can get $1 million right now with a bank credit line, if you have the assets, for about 4%. So the cost to use $1 million is $40,000 a year. That's cheap. Think of how much work it would take you to earn $1 million after tax. For many people, it might be their lifetime. Probably not. But you can get $1 million today, if you had a partner that could back it and secure it, for only $40,000 a year of interest. If you did something with the money that was productive to cover the interest, you can use it. That's incredible. And it's something that's been impossible. It's the first time, like in the history of the world, money is this cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And think about the years it could save if you learn how to use debt and equity financing to get where you want to go, to shave the years off having to save up the money yourself.
Well, and it makes it even bigger opportunity for realtors to go find people with money who would love to invest in real estate if you've got the knowledge, because they don't want to put their money in the bank and make so little on it. So it opens up a larger amount of people that would be willing to be your partner if they saw you as valid and the person they should do it with.
Yeah. Linda, I want to say thank you so much for coming on here, and thank you so much for being with the audience. Greg and I do a little overtime afterwards to talk about you.
Thank you.
So we're going to let you go. Thank you for being on here, and Greg and I are going to hand out. Thank
you guys.
Nice to see you. Bye-bye.
See ya. My pleasure.
We're just going to start turning these keeping it reals into like deep business discussions. Greg, you like that one today?
Well, I've got this yellow notepad, and I tell you what Linda made me think of. It says, I know I have an extra one. I am going to find a blank journal, and every day we do one of these, I'm going to just add a section with the guest name on the page, and I'm just going to journal what I've learned from these people, and
it's like Tim Ferriss's book he wrote, right?
Yeah.
All these interviews and put a book together.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah. And, but yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah. I'll never forget how exciting it was when I saw my dentist at the time. I think it cost about 30 grand to do a deal. So we went, I was 21, and I found this house in Omaha, Nebraska, where I grew up. That was, I don't remember the exact number. Let's say it was about $120,000. And this place would have rented at the time for like $1,300 or $1,400, which is higher than what they call the 1% rule. where it should rent for 1% what you purchased for. It's like, it was really, it's a really good rent price because it was next to the college, University of Nebraska at Omaha, where I went. I'm like, I know this is a 4-bedroom. I know this takes a premium because 4 college kids will shack up in here and split the rent. So in order to do the deal, I think the bank required at the time 20 or 25% down on just a regular old mortgage with a mortgage person for an investment property. So I don't know, what is that, 20, I think it was 30 grand. I needed 30 grand. I got to fix it up a little bit, put the down payment on there, all that stuff. And I think and I worked my tail off to save like $6,000 at 21. And I'm like, I got to get out of this rat race. I don't want to just be like living paycheck to paycheck my entire life. I was reading Rich Dad Poor, all the stuff that anyone watching this has been involved with. And I just remember, like, how can I buy this? Because I wouldn't be able to get a mortgage. I didn't make enough money. And I didn't have the money to go down. I just happened in passing to bring it up to my dentist. And the sheer ease of, I believe he probably had to write, what, a $24,000 check into the LLC that we formed. And I wrote a $6,000 check into it in return for my position. And then from the LLC, which you had to personally guarantee the loan, but that was fine. But then the LLC, we put the money down and bought it. I was like, whoa, I think I just learned capitalism. And I bought every book on like how money is raised and how money works. I remember buying a book on like investment banking and accounting. And when I started kind of learning that for the audience, it opened my mind that you guys said something here, that it's true, that was it, no good deal goes unfunded.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
No good deal will ever go unfunded.
But I was like, tangibly, how do you do that? Like, that sounds nice, you know? And I spent some time on here. So I really want to share for all of you. There's a great video. And if you have kids, they need to watch it. I'm going to post a link again. Greg, this is so God. I'm going to go watch it again later tonight, actually.
Yeah.
If I can find it. It's with Bill Ackman. He is a huge hedge fund guy.
Yeah.
He's always trying to take down people. And what there's a really great movie, by the way, called on Netflix called Betting on Zero. If you have a chance to watch Betting on Zero, it's how he makes a bet against Herbalife that they're like a scam. And there's a whole movie about it. Anyways, that video is really good. And it really taught me a lot. And you see, I get kind of passionate about this stuff because when you talk about these things, it opens up opportunity and you just don't shut down thinking I can't afford, I don't have money.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I like to keep things simple. And there's, you know, for those of you that are in the audience and real estate agents, you know, as soon as if you want to get into investing, then you kind of need to just make that commitment that you're going to start getting into, you're going to start learning it like Frank is talking about. But then just my recommend, continue to do the things that you do in your real estate practice. And because you become more open and committed that this is the direction you want to go, you're going to start to see opportunities that were all around you before. You just never really had a listening for them.
Yep.
And then, so in the beginning, when you start to say, gosh, this is a really good deal. I don't have the money. Remember what I said, a good deal never goes unfunded. So you could call so many people and explain to them the deal that's on the table, and it's highly likely that they're either going to buy it or they would do something with you, depending on your relationship and the validity that you have in their eyes, et cetera, based on what Linda said. But that's just where it starts. That's where it starts. It's like, open your eyes. There's opportunity everywhere. By the way, in every market, hot market and down market. In a hot market, you're like, I don't know, the market's too hot. I don't know, it's probably going to come down. You know, so I don't know if I should buy right now. Well, here's what's going to happen when the market crashes. Well, I don't know. The market might still be going down. I don't know if I should buy right now. We're always going to say the same thing, no matter where the market is. There's good deals in every market if you understand your market. So understand your market, know the market inside out. Make that commitment to that you want to purchase property. Keep your eyes open. You're going to see it. And just remember, no deal will go unfunded. No deal. And now I will say, the more validity you have in the eyes of the people that you ask to kind of cooperate with you in a deal, the more equity you're probably going to get. Because somebody could say, okay, Greg, let's call Greg. Yeah, call me. But if I don't know, if we don't
Very
have
expensive.
if we don't have a
Yeah.
relationship and there's no validity there, and you really don't understand the value that I would be looking for, I would probably still do the deal, but the deal would be structured completely different than the way it was when I asked my mentor to do a deal, who I already had a relationship. There was a lot of validity, et cetera. Right. And so I think that's why it was such a brilliant thing that she's talking about, that relationship and validity and their value.
I love the 15% from the title company off the top. I think even taking this further back, Greg.
Yeah, so there's systematic savings.
Yeah, when I was super young, I was like, I got to get out of this rat race. I don't want to go down this path. I think the popular movie at the time was Office Space. Remember the movie Office Space? I was like, oh my God, I'm going to graduate and go into this. This is terrible. That's what kind of drew me to real estate and starting viral and whatnot. And my number was about 20%. I was like, I got to figure out the habits, the emotional fortitude, the lifestyle, the decision process, kind of the DNA in my system to always like just shave 20% off the top to throw it into an account. And that's something to this day I still do. To this day, it's been a habit I've built. It's like working out every day. Not as good as that one, but the savings one is easier, at least, because it just happens, you know. And I think that's probably too where you have to start, that if you're sick of selling houses, which the title is, or you want a new challenge, you're gonna have to figure out the debt equity structure, maybe how you do something with no money. So there's opportunity there, looking for opportunity, and saving money. Yeah.
Big deal.
So we got some questions. People love the topics today. Good topic. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Glad you guys enjoyed this. Does Linda call on sellers directly to find her rental deals, meaning off market?
Highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely.
Yeah, but in the beginning, I'm sure she was hustling. But, you know, I mean, at this point, obviously she's probably on a lot of people's list of she's a very qualified purchaser. So there's probably a lot of people out there calling her with opportunities.
Richard asks, do you use balloon mortgages to either refinance in high appreciation area or use a balloon mortgage because you know you're going to use a 1031 in 5 to 7 years? I already know your answer, Greg, is like, no, buy it all cash, 60% below value. So for those that don't do that, I'll step in with this one, Richard. What we do is we'll go in and we'll refinance a property 80% of what it's appraised at. And trust me, when the bank does the appraisal, it's conservative. So I'm not too worried about that because they're in-house appraisals. We'll use the commercial side of a local bank. So the actual business side of a local bank, we won't go to like a national lender. They have prepayment penalties and all these stipulations. It's a relationship with a local bank. And when you refinance with a local bank, generally like take the term over 20 years. Rates that you can get now is maybe a 4.25% interest rate. However, they will never do a fix. I mean, you won't get a fixed. A local bank will not take the interest rate risk. So you're probably looking at a 3 to 5 year adjustable rate. So if you do that, you're going to have to hope rates don't go up, which is fairly unlikely. If they jack rates up, it's going to stop the U.S. economy at this point. But yeah, you are going to have an adjustable rate whenever you go to a local bank to do a cash out refinance. If you go down that rate, you will have it will be adjustable. I don't know if anyone is going to do a fixed rate unless maybe you're Linda or Greg.
Yeah.
So
yeah, most people are not if you're going to use the commercial sector of the bank.
Yeah. No. So let's see what else we got here. Anything else here in the chat? No, I think that was good stuff. I appreciate everyone coming here. Hopefully you found some really good value in that. In the chat, if there's anyone that you love us to interview or reach out to, these are all just kind of relationships that I have in my life and Greg has in his life that we're comfortable with, that we know we can ask them questions that they're comfortable answering on public on YouTube for everyone, right, to get you the good information. Leave in the chat, let us know. We really love you guys hanging out here. And of course, this whole show is brought to you by Real Geeks. Go to realgeeks.com, go check out their CRM software. It is excellent. It comes highly recommended. Greg uses it. I would use it, but I'm not a real estate agent. I'm something else. But I want to thank you all for watching, and we'll see you.